Hello dear learners, this is Dr. Kaveri, Professor, Department of Political Science, Christo Jayanti College. Today I am going to explain you about India's foreign policy, what are the objectives of the foreign policy and what are the basic principles of Indian foreign policy. So normally the creator of the Indian foreign policy is Pandit Nehru, whom we call him as the chief architect of the India's foreign policy. The shaping of India's foreign policy was largely been influenced by the international development soon after the Second World War, the weakening of the forces of imperialism and the growth of forces of democracy and progress. So, objectives of foreign policy is maintaining international peace and security, to oppose imperialism, to stand against the appetite policy, and then to propagate the peaceful and the political settlement of international disputes, to foster the peaceful coexistence, and to remain non-aligned and non-committed, and to maintain the balance of power among the nations. Let's see the basic principles of India's foreign policy. So we have n number of principles for the India's foreign policy. So let me begin with the first one, that is we have non-aligned movement. Now, when we talk about the non-aligned movement, we can see that soon after the Second World War, when the entire world was being divided into two blocks, that's one is you have under USA and the other one that we have is USSR. So many countries of the world became the allies of these two powerful blocks. Okay, I mean, when it comes to India, like where exactly are we going for? Are we going to accept or join to the bloc of the American bloc or join to the Soviet Union bloc? So India, under the leadership of Pandit Nehru, decided like let us be separate. Let us not have an enmity with either of the blocs, and we came up with the concept of non-aligned movement. So the contributors towards the non-aligned movement was not only Pandit Nehru, but also we can find the other major leaders, important leaders, where like we have General Sukarno, the president of Indonesia, Tito, the president of Yugoslavia, and Nasir of Egypt. So these are being considered as founding members of the non-aligned movement. And then we have the next one, which we call it as a Panchshi. So Panchshi, which stands with 5 principles, so which literally means Panch and Shil. So Panch, it means 5, and Shil, it means principles. So in a nutshell, when we talk about Panchshi, it means 5 principles. So Panchshi was an agreement which was being signed between India, the then Prime Minister Pandit Nehru, and Chinese Prime Minister, the Chow En-lai, on 29th April 1954. So the 5 principles were signed between India and China, where the first one is mutual respect to each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty. The second one is you have mutual non-aggression, and the third we have is mutual non-interference to each other's internal affairs. Then equality and mutual benefits, and the fifth one that we have is about the peaceful coexistence. But 1962 war has resulted for the the questioning of the validity of the Panchshi. Okay, now let's move on to the next. We have the principle, that is opposition to imperialism and colonialism. As India was a colony of the Britishers for almost 190 years, that is, though we say British East India Company came to India in 1600, and since then the British East India Company was ruling, but after that we can find there was a turning point in 1858. So what exactly happened? So you all of us know that 1857 is a turning point in Indian history, because that was the first time, as according to some of the historians, it has been referred as a first struggle, or you can say first war of independence. where India ever realized that it is our country and we have to fight for our rights. Of course, there is a lot of criticisms also where many of the historians do not claim that it is a first war of independence, because the entire India did not participate in this. However, the Sipai Mutiny, as we also call it as the first war of independence, was one of the major footing step here, because that made the British government to realize, and then you can find that the powers were directly transferred from the British East India Company to the British Crown. So the 190 years, what the calculation that we talk is from 1858 to 1947. So that means to say for nearly 190 years, we say that India was a colony of the Britishers, and India firmly stood in opposition to any form of imperialism and colonialism. Thus, India played a major role in liberating the newly independent countries of Asia and Africa from the colonial shackles, because we know the pain of it. And the next is we have faith in United Nations. So as a founding member of the UNO, India played a very important role in achieving the world peace. So India, as a major democratic country in the world, it also has collaborated with United Nations agencies like UNICEF, UNESCO, UNIDO, UNDP and all that. So Indian foreign policy supports and regards as an agency of the world peace. India has contributed its troops to the United Nations peacekeeping force operations in the tense and the conflict areas in the different regions, especially in the difficult missions of the world. For example, the civil wars of Cambodia, Somalia. Now, these are the certain examples that we can see. And coming to the fairness of means, we say that with the inspiration of Gandhian ideas, India has always been empathized fair means in resolving the international disputes. So India has supported a peaceful and a non-violent methods and opposed the war, aggression and power politics anywhere in the world. Indian foreign policy also expresses the full support in peaceful means for the settlement of the disputes. Then we have the other one, what we call it as an anti-appetite and racial discrimination. So India has stood up by the principles of racial equality and opposes any kind of discrimination which takes place on the basis of race, religion, caste, color or sex. India opposed and rejected the doctrine of white supremacy, and it has been the most outspoken critic of the racism. Equal and honorable treatment of all in the world is India's goal, and India is always against the policy of apartheid followed in South Africa, and it broke off the diplomatic relations with it as the protest to the racial discrimination. It has always been an active member in fighting against any kind of discrimination or apartheid. The next we have is tie with the Commonwealth. So India, though got an independence from the British imperialism, yet India decided to continue as a member of the Commonwealth nations. So the British Queen, who was the head of the Commonwealth nation, she made up a mind that the word British has to be removed. So later on, it has been termed only as Commonwealth nations. So in many of the Commonwealth, in many Commonwealth heads of the governments meetings, CHOGM, strident declarations were being passed regarding the problems of social discrimination like appetite, violating of the human rights and other issues of democracies in the member countries and the world. Coming to the next one we have is about the disarmament. So the major concern of India's foreign policy in the post-Cold War period is the disarmament and arms race in the world. Though India is one among the major nuclear power in the world, it is still only for the civil use and for the development, and not for the armed or the nuclear race. The ultimate goal is comprehensive and complete disarmament of all forms of nuclear, chemical and unconventional conventional weapons. India established Indira Gandhi's Peace Prize, Disarmament and Development to recognize the persons who work for the promotion of disarmament and peace in the world. So in the year 2017, Dr. Manmohan Singh was been awarded with this prize. And then we have sympathy towards the divided nation. So partition of India and Pakistan due to the divide and rule policy of the British in 1947, which resulted in terrible riots, enormous suffering of the people who moved out of their homes and had to begin their life again as refugees. Because of the bitter experience of this incident, India is sympathetic towards the divided countries of the world, and India expressed its stringent opposition towards the bifurcation of the Palestine in Arab, South and North Korea and Vietnam. The next is we have concern towards the smaller countries. So India's foreign policies emphasizes its concern towards to the small countries of the world, and it supported Malaysia in 1957, Ghana in 1957 again, Bangladesh in 1971, and it helped them to emerge as an independent nation. India is also giving and extending support assistance to the small countries in the world, and is always in the forefront in the construction and rehabilitation of the war-torn and small nations which have been affected by the natural disaster. Then we talk about the affinity towards the Afro-Asian countries. Though India has a relation with the small countries, with all the countries in a way in the world, she has a special affinity towards the countries in the Asia and Africa. So India supported the freedom struggle of the African countries like Namibia. We became an independent in March 1990. Have Nelson Mandela, the first black leader who became the president of the South Africa in May 1994. We are against the Cold War. So Cold War as began with the formation of the two powerful blocs soon after the end of the Second World War. So rivalry between them, which resulted for an emergence of many military alliances, like we have NATO, we have SEATO, CENTO, Baghdad Pact and all. So as a result of NAM, it stayed away from these two blocs. So India's foreign policy was neither negative nor passive, as Pandit Nehru declared to the world that NAM was not a policy of fleeing away, but India tried to reduce the rivalry between the two blocs and to choose to involve with other members of the non-aligned group in this mission. Thank you so much.